another episode of Choppin Wood. We're just gonna be chopping it up. Today though, kind of wanted to bring up a nice little topic of one of the considered the greatest artists of all time, if not one of them. Broke millions of records as far as his catalog goes. Owns the Beatles. Around the street, rumor is that he owns Eminem's catalog. Don't know how true that is, but so they say. But talking about the late great, and he made Thriller, Michael Jackson. Give a round of applause.
Yeah, let's get a round of applause for Michael.
But we're not here to talk about. I mean, maybe we are, but our intentions aren't to talk about none of the child allegations, molestation shit. We may go down that rabbit hole, but we're not talking about that right now. But what I wanted to get into it. So I asked you a question off air, Cave, and so do you think Michael Jackson really had vitiligo?
First off, is that how you pronounce it? Because I always see the word and I don't know 100% how to pronounce it.
I don't know either. I never looked at the word. I'm just going off what people say. But right. I have seen people that really do have it.
Same.
Real quick, I've never seen anyone fully, covered like that, like fully just white. If they have it, usually they have like patches. And I'm not trying to. If I'm saying the wrong term, please. I don't mean no disrespect to anyone that does have it. Just please correct me if I'm wrong. But I've only seen patches. I don't really see people really fully, with lighter, fair skin. Or not fair, but lighter skin. Oh,
yeah. Well, no, I know someone who, like, he's a kid. He has it vitiligo, or however you pronounce it, and I've seen him. It spreads as he's gotten older, in a sense, and I could see obviously that one model. Was she dating Kuzma?
Heiny Winnie, or
yeah,
Winnie,
and a good-looking girl who has it like all over her body and face, and she's really embraced it, and I think that's super cool for her. But so obviously I've seen it in real life. It's a real thing.
For sure.
I've never seen someone. I've never seen someone completely covered to where it goes all the way from chocolate to vanilla.
Right.
But I'm assuming he had a procedure done to do so. But the way you, like I said, phrased it off air was that you don't think he had the condition, or what's your...
Yes, so I don't think he did have it, but let's go to how we were talking about Sammy Sosa off air. I think Sammy Sosa for sure bleached himself, because there was granted, maybe we don't see the whole entirety of their body. Him being a baseball player, maybe we didn't. Same with Michael. Maybe we never seen the whole entirety of how they look, so maybe they did have patches here and there. But when we see of both of them, they're fully, white. There's no really color to them anymore. But they do have features, obviously, that they are not white. So I do believe Sammy Sosa did, and I do believe Michael Jackson did. Now, a little background story for some of you that don't know the whole, Michael Jackson stuff. And I'm young, and I was born in 1991. Michael Jackson was already 30-something, maybe 40 at that time. So I don't know too much, but I know enough, just as probably the casual Michael Jackson fan would know. Not just the casual music fan, but probably a casual Michael Jackson fan. Part of the Jackson 5. And, he had a real disdain, hatred towards his father. And that's, been documented. He really just despised his father for how he kind of brought them up. But, his father made him, helped him become one of the greatest entertainers and musicians of all time, however you want to put it, or artists, whatever you want to go about it. But he just didn't like the way he looked. So he tended to get a bunch of plastic surgery around his face and, his skin. But, some would say it was hatred towards his father because he did look like his father somewhat. I'm going to take this deeper and not say it was because of that.
Okay.
I don't hear this being talked about a lot. I never do. And maybe I'm just fucking kooky for thinking this, but so it is documentedly known that Michael Jackson was so in love with Diana Ross, right? Like he loved her to the fullest. And I don't know if they ever had a thing. Maybe they did. We just never know about it. Maybe it is public knowledge and I just never knew about it, whatever the case may be. But this has never been brought to light, in my opinion. Yeah, Diana Ross had a affair with Berry Gordy, who is one of the founders, is the founder of fucking Motown Records. But she did marry 2 white men, and maybe Michael felt a way about that. Maybe because Michael truly, this is all just me and my crazy ass mind. Maybe he did all this to try to get Diana Ross. Like she married 2 white men, right? Don't really know their names, but 2. And I looked this up. She married 2 white men, and supposedly Michael just really loved her. What if he did all of that, the facial stuff, the plastic surgery? He says he did it to hit higher notes. That's what he says. That's why he said he shaved his nose down to hit a higher pitch in his nose. And some say it's because whatever happened to him in the Pepsi commercial where his Jerry curl caught on fire and everything, just like that. Maybe they do some reconstruction. I don't think so. I do believe he changed his features to get Diana Ross. Like that it does, to me, that doesn't seem so far-fetched.
I think I like how you were about to say Diana Ross.
I know.
I got that. But B, I think plastic surgery, as much as I think people do have an inner struggle with body dysmorphia and certain things. I think it's plausible that he changed his appearance based off of he didn't want to look like his father and stuff like that. And the narrative of him with the Pepsi commercial, reconstructive, this and that. I think it's an interesting, lane you're going down here. I don't know how much traction it'll get, but Diana Taurasi wasn't born yet. No, it's an interesting. That's an interesting tidbit you say, because I guess we'll never know. I think hitting a higher note is BS. He went so far deep in the transition. I mean, when you pull up as a kid to
his death,
later,
totally different people.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like if he didn't have this right here, like his eyes, you wouldn't know that was him, really.
Right. Yeah. Because his whole chin was different. His nose, he didn't have one. For those of you, this is a real throwback. No one's going to get this, but who watched Mutant League show, he looks like Bones Justice. And if I can find a photo, I'll put it up on the YouTube channel if you're watching there. But point being, I think that's an interesting tidbit. I don't know much about Diana Ross or Diana Taurasi, but that's interesting. I think a crazier conspiracy is that Jeffrey Epstein did not hang himself, but we can get there in a little bit.
And we can get to that really quickly. Just want to make this last point about Michael Jackson. Men have done crazier shit for women.
That's true.
So I'm not saying, or maybe not change your whole output, but men have done some crazy shit to get women and get their attention. So to me, for someone who at that time was probably worth $1 billion, which his estate probably, I don't know what his estate was, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around there. To own his catalog is probably expensive. But at that time, and being one of the biggest stars, probably bigger than Jesus that we could think of, it's not far for me to think that he would do this if he loved this woman that much, because he saw that she was married to 2 different Caucasian males. And to me, and like I said, this is all just me fucking throwing some shit out. And I think that I don't see why that has never gotten brought up. Maybe because Diana Taurasi is held at such a high regard, and we think Michael's, such a fucking kook, and the allegations. I'm just saying.
You said that time you did say Diana
Taurasi? Oh, I meant Diana Ross.
No, but I like it.
So that's such a high regard. But that's just me spitballing. I don't know. I'm just trying to stir the punch bowl with my dong. But yeah, let me know what you think. I mean, y'all can call me a fucking whack job, Michael, whatever the fuck you want to call me. But that's not far-fetched for someone who probably has a lot of money and to maybe want to go that route to get the woman he probably desired the most.
Yeah, I've never heard that. Let us know in the comments if you've heard that.
I think I'm the first probably to come up with this shit.
Yeah, also, I do want to touch real briefly, like you said, we may or may not touch on it, but just a question in general. Do you think he was guilty of any of the allegations from said children?
So, as we've talked about conspiracies, I think we're both really big conspiracy theorists. He did buy the Beatles catalog. That's a known fact that he paid $64 million for the Beatles catalog. It's Sony, they wanted to probably sell to Sony at the time. And he owned quite a bit amount of his, catalog. And there has been times on record where he said they're trying to kill him. I don't know I don't know who they is. They is, I guess, really wanted him. And there is an interview on another platform called Vlad TV where that guy interviews a really notorious gangster from Oakland. His name's Ronnie Newt, and he met Michael. He has a picture, and it's one of his interviews. If you ever want to look, I'm not trying to plug that, that outlet, but I'm just saying that there is a picture of this guy and Michael Jackson with the kid wearing his underwear. This gangster said, if Michael Jackson ever touched my kid, I'd kill him myself. He didn't believe that any of that shit was true. Me, I've watched a tidbit of, the Forgetting Neverland or whatever it's called. I don't think that it's fair to bring this shit up after the man is gone. If you really felt that way at the time, you should have pushed harder for it at the time. You should have really just kept going and going. We keep saying you could have said Michael was such a powerful force. Well, they were trying to really do a bunch of other shit against his business hoes and stuff like that. So he really couldn't do much. You know what I'm saying? So if he was such a powerful force and they really wanted to get him down, I don't see how you couldn't push it more if you really wanted to. I don't think he did it, but then again, who's to say? I feel for people that do go through situations like that. It's heartbreaking, when you hear about certain shit like that. But do I think Michael did it? I don't know. I mean, granted, I also can't say that I've seen him with too many pictures with older women. I can't say I have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of, for me, it's like this, but I'm going to just give him the benefit of the doubt and say no, just because he was going through a lot of shit as far as whatever he thought he was going through, them trying to kill him. And also him, just the stuff with the Beatles, I think that did play a role in somewhat of whatever he was going through.
Well, I think I saw a documentary a while back about how I believe he had an alarm system to his room that would notify him if anyone was like coming down the hallway, and he would like keep his door locked and stuff like that, which kind of made me start to think about how like Matt Lauer or I just watched Bombshell. I got the DVD behind me about the Megyn Kelly scandal and I forget the guy's name, but at Fox. And it kind of got me thinking about how when you have like a popular polarizing figure, and then there's these allegations.
Bill O'Reilly?
Not Bill O'Reilly. Let me look
at
the thing real quick. Bombshell, check it out. Margot Robbie, one of my favorite actresses of all time. Basically, it's about. His name's not on here. This is a really bad plug. This is bad. This is bad broadcasting. Point being, it's about the dude at Fox who he ended up getting all kinds of allegations against him and stuff like that. He would use, it was sort of like a Weinstein thing before Weinstein, and he ended up getting like a severance package, and they paid him like $40 million to basically not work there anymore. So he did not get condemned for what he was alleged to be doing. But so it makes me think kind of about the Deshaun Watson thing. I don't know if you've been keeping up with that.
Yeah.
And so when you have a plethora of allegations, not just one or two, but when you have 10 or multiple 20, I find it interesting when I'm not a proponent necessarily of believing either side just by default. I like to keep an open mind about each side and not just want to declare so-and-so a liar off rip, especially we live in a crazy age with Me Too, and this is a real slippery slope, and I understand.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But like when the polarizing figure, I think Deshaun Watson's attorney came out and said, well, he's got 15 massage therapists that will go on record saying he's never touched them and he's a great client, or he's got like 30 that will say this or that. Just because someone has other people who say they've never done anything to them doesn't necessarily mean he's not guilty towards the other people. And in that specific situation, when it doesn't shine a great light saying I have 30 other females who are willing to go on record saying he never touched them, but the 20 other, like, why do you need so many massage therapists? And that's another topic of debate. But so like when Michael Jackson is going through all these allegations and stuff, and then like Macaulay Culkin says he never did anything with me, there's nothing inappropriate. Just by him saying that doesn't necessarily make me think that, oh, Michael Jackson definitely didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Especially when it's also a polarizing figure like an actor or someone like that. I don't know, if Macaulay Culkin said, yeah, he touched me, so maybe Michael Jackson, just hypothetically, like he wouldn't do that to him because that's another polarizing figure in a sense. But so it's a really slippery slope. There's always a money angle, potential money angle towards it, smear campaign. And we live in an age where now, I mean, for better or for worse, so to speak, someone can be ridiculed and condemned like they did it off rip. If, a couple people allege inappropriate activity, some people crucify them no matter what. But then some people will go, defend them until like no one thought Bill Cosby was what he was. You know what I mean? I had no clue before everything started to drop on Bill Cosby. So I don't like to think one way or the other. You in this country, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, a lot of people don't have a reason. Sometimes they don't have a monetary reason to allege these things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it's a really slippery slope. And one question I wanted to bring up was, can you compartmentalize like a horrible person's disgraceful, inappropriate activity and their art that they create? For example, Kevin Spacey. House of Cards is literally one of my favorite shows of all time. And then all of a sudden it comes out Kevin Spacey's a complete scumbag who, allegedly, did things like inappropriately to underage like boys before they're 18 and stuff like that. And then he comes out and says like, well, I'm gay. He comes out of the closet and in hopes, I'm assuming, to like get a little bit of mercy, you know what I mean? Like, oh, well, I was really struggling with my, identity and this and that. It's like, that doesn't justify you assaulting someone sexually or whatever. So horrible move on his part to try to get sympathy or empathy during that time. But like when I watch House of Cards, I mean, in that circumstance, he's a horrible dude in the show. I don't know if you've seen it. But he's a horrible guy in real life. So like that, I can kind of be like, man, this makes sense. So it doesn't ruin the show for me in that sense. But like a Bill Cosby, do you see things different? Do you think people should still be compensated or worked with if like, oh yeah, so-and-so did this horrible thing and everyone just turns a blind eye? Like, how do you feel about like the art of someone that creates like music, movies or whatever, and the deeds that they've allegedly or have done and been convicted of? Do you think you can separate the two, or should people not separate the two? And should they not be allowed to? What are your thoughts on that?
So just to put it in perspective, like just overall,
Uh-huh.
as much as we say, should we do, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
We do, as people, we do. People love how, like you said, you love House of Cards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, like, people probably still, I've never watched the show, so it is what it is to me. People still love that show. So they're still gonna watch it, but they're still gonna have that opinion about him. The same with R. Kelly, in a sense, where people love Step in the Name of Love. They still want to play that song, but then they know who it came from, but they're still gonna listen to it. So to me, I love the Cosby Show. It's one of my favorite shows. I used to watch it growing up when they play the reruns. Mm-hmm. Really enjoy that show. But for me, I watched a lot of interviews probably in the last 15 years about Bill Cosby from other comedians that grew up and idolized Mike Cosby, Bill Cosby, and really enjoyed his kind of stance, like his comedy and what he did. Someone mentioned, like, without Bill Cosby, there probably wouldn't be an Obama, because he planted that seed as far as like coming from a well-established African-American family and put it on TV and showed you could be somebody.
Yeah.
So, I love that show. But the shit he would ridicule comedians. I mean, it's a well-known fact. He ridiculed Eddie Murphy for years. He didn't like his comedy. He said he was too vulgar, too nasty. That's not what comedy should be about. But who is Bill Cosby to say what's right if he was doing this other shit? You know what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of people were saying, like, in the 70s, everyone was doing whatever he was giving them, pills, fucking anything. They're doing coke a lot. They said they had coke spoons around their neck. They were party drugs. It was more of a party drug than it was later on in life, and it became more addicting. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't in that era, obviously, but to hear and see it, it's you do, as much as I hate to say it, we do as a community do really separate the art from the person. You just do. And if we get flack, we get flack, but that is so true. There's tons of people out there, and it just goes to what you want to believe or how much you really want to believe in that. That's how I feel. I mean, I'm not going to stop listening. Like when everyone thought that Dave Chappelle was this crazy person because he didn't take $55 million from Comedy Central because he believed in what he thought. And then they made this narrative to go on to believe that he was on crack and like he was just on these whole bunch of drugs. I didn't agree with that. I didn't think that was a thing. I in my opinion, he is the greatest comedian that I've ever like seen or heard. And then next to it is Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy for me. They've done a bunch of controversial shit. Richard Pryor considered the greatest comedian of all time, and all the shit he's done, and we don't condemn it. Like we condemn him from it, but he lived his truth. You know, I think the reason we give Bill Cosby so much shit is because he didn't live his truth. He was trying to say he was such a wholesome married man, but he really wasn't. And he was out here doing some weird shit. But yeah.
Well, and my thing too, like, in whether, I guess it's a moral question. What can you as an individual separate the art from the human? But like, for example, when Kevin Spacey's shit started to hit, they were just finishing up, about to release All the Money in the World, and he played not the antagonist, but he played a character in that, and they then like dumped him from the project and then had to reshoot all of his scenes, and I think it was with something plumber or whatever. And so like in this scenario, I think it's unfair for all of the production peoples and the other actors, hard work to go out the door because of one person's malfeasance. I don't think it's fair that movie tanked because of all the controversy surrounding Kevin Spacey when all those people were, have done everything that they needed to do. And so like, should I not go see that movie? Let's say they would have kept him in or whatever. Should I not go see that movie because Kevin Spacey? Should I boycott that because he shouldn't, get royalties from it or whatever? And then that kind of leads me to another, like a two-part question is, one is, should we feel one way or the other different when if someone creates art and it creates a feeling in you, and I think that's what art does, like, again, whatever the medium is, if it creates a memory or a feeling for you that you enjoy, then that's great. And that's what's so cool about art, is it's subjective. So if like an R. Kelly song takes you back to that time, your first kiss, or that dance or something in junior high or whatever it may be, and then you find out later that, oh, he's a scumbag who's done this, this, and this, that probably shouldn't, I would assume, I guess in my personal view, that shouldn't take away from the feelings that art gave you from that time,
Right.
regardless of if that dude was horrible or not, or that guy or gal was horrible. But then it's another topic to say, okay, so this person is a piece of shit, and then they create art. Should we still invest in that art, whether it's good or bad? Because now that they're a piece. It would be like Hitler creating a painting after World War II. I'm not gonna, I don't want him to compensate for that art, but B, I don't think a person who's that evil or horrible should be embraced, like their creation should be embraced like that because of all the bad deeds that they've done. And so that's kind of me personally. I wouldn't support someone like that, but at the same time, saying that, it's a slippery slope, because some people, whether they know about something that's going on or not, condone it still because of, you can't lose your job because you need that house, you need to put food on the table for your kids. So are you doing the right thing by not saying anything and letting, just kind of bygones be bygones, in a sense, because you got to put food on your table for your family, or morally, like, so it's all a gray area. You know what I mean?
Oh no, for sure. No, it definitely is. I mean, hell, kind of hate to bring it up, but like Cardi B, I mean, she came out and said she was drugging people and stealing stuff from them when she go meet up with them. And look at her now. I mean, we still support and still buy music. Women still buy music from her and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of is, but it's really hard to separate the two. Like, it just is when you kind of invest a lot into that person and you don't even know the person. You just invest your, mental, the stuff you go through at that time, whatever it made you feel like at that time. Like, it's hard to get rid of those emotions. So I get it. It's just hard to do. And as a community, as a whole, as everyone, we do that. Like, we do separate the two, and we're still going to continue to purchase, unless you really just make a real conscious decision to say, fuck it. And there are some people like that.
Yeah.
That really just don't fuck with that person and definitely just let it be. Like, look at Woody Allen. Have you seen?
I did see the HBO documentary. Yeah.
So I gotta finish it, but me, my fiance, she wants to watch it with me too. So I just put that on hold, but we did finish the first one. But just reading into more and more Woody Allen, so I never knew how like big of a deal he kind of was, but he was a bigger deal like from the 50s to like maybe late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And like he was more of that kind of a big deal because he was more in his film and craft and stuff like that. But to know how much of a creep he was,
man,
it's easy. So like for me, that's easy for me to just say, well, I'd never watched anything from him because I'm not emotionally invested in any of his films.
Right.
The film I knew him from was Ants. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you go back and look at his catalog of his movies, his discography or whatever, a lot of his movies had to do with an older man and a borderline coming of age girl. And
17, 18-year-old woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think one of his films is literally about an older guy being with a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And for me, as an aspiring filmmaker, when I write and stuff, you have to be able to connect with the art. He writes his own stuff, so like you have to be able to connect with the art in a sense, the story. Find some way to personalize it for yourself. It could be an alien invasion, but like his main characters, can you see yourself in the characters in a sense? And he straight up writes movies about old dudes with young girls and condoning it, like in a sense. And even if he's in the movie, he talks about how like this is wrong, this is bad, but like, you clearly are seeing some kind of, those thoughts going through his head, and he's internalizing that through film. And then in the documentary, not to spoil, I don't know if you're at that part yet, but someone said,
no, go ahead. Like I said, I think I know pretty much without watching it, kind of how
yeah. And it's so long ago, it's not like a crazy,
No, yeah, it's not like it's not common knowledge. Just no one did anything about it.
Yeah. And this one dude said like there's like these archived, like unfinished scripts of his in the Film Institute or whatever that, under lock and key. And he read some, and they were every one of them had to do with the older guy, younger girl. And some of them it was much more ridiculous and vulgar.
It was way worse than what he actually created and put out.
Right. And so what he got away with creating was like a borderline, because like Bad Baby or whatever, Catch Me Outside, how about that girl?
That's literally and like right when she turned 18,
boom, $1 million.
Like a bunch of like someone's buying her OnlyFans. So that means people were actually really checking for her at a younger age.
So literally a day before it's illegal, immediately once the clock strikes 12:01, she's legal for everybody to salivate over. If anything, that speaks more to our society than it does her.
For sure.
And the fact that people are willing to pay that many people are willing to pay that much money to see her is mind-boggling.
For sure.
And it's I don't know, it's also a gray area in a sense too, because an 18-year-old could be in high school. I was 18 my senior year, and if I'm with, let's say, a junior or a sophomore, for example, if that was the situation, and then when I leave high school or whatever, I'm 19, she's 17, I would think most society would kind of get it, because like a year before it was like, you guys are in the same school and it's not that crazy. But what about or for example, like a 36-year-old and a 27-year-old? Okay, I could see that. But then 18 and they were 9, super weird. So obviously we all have these conversations in a sense, but when did society also determine 18 is the cutoff point for that, like, or 21's for alcohol? Like we decided this as a society at some point.
For sure.
It's interesting.
I want to say when they decided they could let kids fight in wars that they have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
I think that's some fucked up shit. Like, because you could be a war veteran, like let's say the ones that survived that went to World War I and II at 18 years old, maybe even 17 because maybe they had to go.
Yeah.
And survived to be 20. Let's just say that they're considered a war veteran. They can't get a drink yet until they're 21, like a whole nother year, but they just fought for their country. They literally put their life on the line, especially at that time where war was a lot more, wasn't as sophisticated as it is today, where a lot of shit could happen. Granted, there's still combat, but a lot of shit could happen with droids and a lot of like far away kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
With
drones or droids?
Yeah, droids, drones,
Star Wars shit. Hey, we're close. But
then you had to go and travel. I'm not saying you don't now, but I'm saying then you had to fight overseas. You had to fight on sea. You had to get and fight to land. Then you actually had real dog fights in the air. I don't know if they still do now. Maybe not, because everyone now has jets and the real high-tech jets. So maybe that just might be a little bit too much. But back then they only had, the jets that they had were fucking just regular ass one-seater like planes.
Yeah, with a little Gatling gun on it.
Exactly. So imagine then, like you actually had to go and fight. I kind of forgot where I'm going with this, but
you get home after a hard day of dogfighting in the air, and you say, I need a drink, and they say,
exactly, like, and you
can't
come back home, like, so I don't know where we all decided the age limit. Hell, some states it's 16.
Yeah. So
I don't know how they determine these laws and legislations, but like in our last pod, this fucking, you can't get this shit wrong when it comes to lawmaking. You just can't. Either make the date 21 or 25. And I'm saying this because 25, you're able to actually rent a car. But I've been driving since I was 16 when I actually really got my license. So I have to wait a whole 9 to 10 years to actually be able to rent a car.
Is that a real thing? You can't rent a car till you're 25?
Yeah, at least here that I know of.
Wow.
So
that doesn't make any sense.
Right? So, but I could buy cigarettes at 18, but I can't drink until I'm 20.
Right. And you couldn't smoke weed until now. You know what I mean?
So yeah, it's just, I don't know who makes this shit up. But whoever does, I mean, they need to, they think they got to figure it out, but I just don't think everything's figured out yet. I think there's some more you can tweak. But
well, and what podcast did I bring up, or maybe it was off air? We talked about that Breaking Bad episode where Walt is saying, like, 20 years ago we couldn't have.
It was ours.
Right.
We were talking about it.
No, but we were talking about this on one of the podcasts, and about how
it was 2 episodes ago. So
okay, well, appreciate y'all for tuning in to that one and this one. So yeah, it goes to show that like the Prohibition era, one day something's legal, one day it's not, and then who knows what's going to be legal and illegal later or before. But the fact that we can determine, I have a lot of, I'm sure a lot of you out there smoke weed. I personally don't partake, but I've heard countless arguments like pro marijuana and about how back in the day, like it was hemp or whatever was seen as like a villain, not a villain. It was seen as, I'm sorry,
feasible, like you can use it, like it's okay to use.
Yeah, but in the sense that, so it was seen as like, oh, this could it could be an enemy to certain industries because
for sure, yeah.
So then it's like, okay, we got to outlaw this, you know what I mean, because it'll hurt this industry or whatever, you know what I mean. Well, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, an adversary.
Well, hell, meth was actually considered like a real drug back in like the 10s and 20s in 1900. It really was considered a real drug, like a pharmaceutical drug. Like you could actually use those amphetamines to be okay. I mean, there's still amphetamines now, but you could use that as an actual drug. Same with cocaine. Cocaine was a drug that you could use back then. Hell, cocaine was in Coca-Cola.
Right. And so at some point they say, okay, we can't have that. We're going to outlaw this. We're going to make this illegal.
We don't talk about that shit that much. Like, why do we, like, does society not keep that as a thing? Like, if something happens to us, then you'll know why if you watch this. But why isn't this shit talked about enough? Like, we're quick to bring up a bunch of other shit right away, but we're not quick to talk about the shit that actually changed society. Like, that changed society. Like, to really, like, think if we still had meth running around as an actual pharmaceutical drug, in a sense that when we sold it to cure something, we have a bunch of meth addicts running around right now.
Well, and that's why, and this is
pills are the new thing, but still.
Yeah, it's dangerous to pull your facts from like a movie or something, which is what I'm about to do right now. But like in Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, is saying like Quaaludes used to, like, you take one, you fall asleep. It's nothing bad about it. You know what I mean? It was like a sleeping pill. But then people figured out if you fight that urge to sleep, then it gives you a crazy high afterwards. And so then they started to exploit them. So with everything in life, it gets exploited. When people talk about addiction's a real thing, but when it actually causes problems or harm to your life, then that's when it becomes an issue. Whereas anything, you can be addicted to anything that can harm your life in a negative way. You can be addicted to work, which sounds great in a sense, but what if now your relationship with your kids is bad because you're always working? So addiction, in a sense, doesn't necessarily just pertain to like, alcohol or drugs or whatever. But so it's a slippery slope. It's when we start to exploit something. And I think for example, like the Koch brothers, the billionaire Koch brothers, it's like a Koch brother. It looks like Koch is spelled like cock, but they pronounce it Coke. Anyway, point being, those dudes lobby millions of dollars to get laws and shit that makes their business more profitable. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna influence politics that benefit them, which makes sense. And they have the billions of dollars to do that. So if, let's say, some kind of thing that's not harmful, like marijuana, for example, is going to hurt their industry in one way or the other, then they're going to try to influence Congress and say, hey, like, let's make this shit illegal because it's going to affect their bottom dollar. I think a lot of that's politics, right? Like, but at the same time, how much of that's going on? And as a society, we just kind of agree with it and go along with it. And I don't know how change will necessarily be brought on. I don't know if everything we need to get our pitchforks out for every little thing. But, that House of Cards is that show that really shows me, and it's based on like actual, like, people who've been in the White House write that show about how political and crazy shit is. They don't give a fuck about us. You know what I mean? My phone's right here. What's good, FBI agent listening? They're hearing us right now. So if anything does happen to us on the pod, hopefully I'll upload this to YouTube before we get whacked. But it's put a Band-Aid over your webcams, fellas and gals. Watch the movie Snowden.
To add to that though, like, I just want people to know, if you think these big companies aren't behind everything, you're fucking crazy. Like, cigarettes are starting to somewhat become banned. Mm-hmm. More than likely because the cigarette companies are probably now in the marijuana industry. Probably under a different name, but it's them. I guarantee you. They're gonna, like, if you think you're gonna invest into a place, like you're gonna invest into weed, trust me, the big corporations have a hand in that. They're taking that shit out your pocket. They're going to. That's just kind of what it is. Unless you got more money than them and more political connects, that's the only way that shit's gonna work for you. And I'm not even trying to give out game. I'm just saying the shit that I see, the shit that goes on in the world, that's what it seems like. And when you watch like House of Cards, how you say, I'm a true believer that a lot, like, in my opinion, I watch Scandal. I'm a true believer that's probably how politics really work. The reason I say that is because a lot of writing, they say it may be fictional, but you're drawing from a personal experience, or you're drawing, like, I don't think anyone's just that creative to really just come up with something like that. I don't think so. Like, there's some truth behind every fiction, in my opinion. I don't think that even Breaking Bad, I'm pretty sure a lot, like some of that shit, like the blue came from the blue magic that was being sold in Harlem. And that's from heroin. So, like, the reason that's why they made the meth blue. Mm-hmm. A lot of that, like, a lot of shit comes from real stuff. And that's my whole point. Like, I do believe a lot of, like, if you think any of these corporations aren't putting their hands in a lot of the shit that's going on, like pills, then you're fucking crazy. Like, if you think they gather so bad, but they make so much more money off of it. So just be careful what y'all do.
Yeah, don't go to your nearest alley and buy heroin from that goon in the alley. No, it's funny though that you say like the writing and stuff like that. Yeah, I do think a lot of it's based on personal experience, or I think people can be creative, but at the same time, even truth is stranger than fiction oftentimes. Like, Making a Murder really happened. And if you were to tell me, like, write a crime drama or whatever, am I going to sit here and say, I think this, like the cops planted this and that? Like, that's a crazy thing to, happen. And, like, don't get us started on Hillary Clinton and her body count, in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, again, FBI agent, we're just recording our podcast. But yeah, I think it's crazy. And, like, House of Cards has taught me, just at the very least, if, like, things are maneuvered in Congress and whatnot based on the people we put there's agenda.
For sure.
And if it suits them, they might strong arm something and then have to give and take on something else. And we didn't necessarily elect them to do that, to work in, their own personal gain. But then you got dudes like Dick Cheney who get personal financial gain from a war in Iraq. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, no, for sure.
So, I mean, if you watch The Big Short, or if you watch, that Dick Cheney movie, I forget what it's called, but Christian Bale plays Dick Cheney. Is it called Dick? What is it called?
It sounds like it would be called that. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's so much just selfish negligence. And have you seen The Big Short?
I didn't even know this was a thing.
Okay, so The Big Short's a movie about the 2007 housing market crash, 2007-8, and it's got a star-studded cast. I advise you watch it; you'll really like it. And it's kind of a pop movie that, not a pop movie, but it has like references because there's like CDOs and they have all these terms and shit that no one gives a fuck about except lawyers, and so like here's Margot Robbie in a bathtub to explain how this works, and then so it's creatively it's well done. It's created by Adam McKay, I believe, and but they talk about how like the banks basically just said the housing market will never crash because everyone pays their mortgage, but what they end up doing was they would take these bonds and shit, and then they would be faulting on their payments, and then they would just put them into another bond and then say, oh, that's AAA rating, because the rating agencies would rate them AAA, because if they didn't, then they would just take them to another rating agency and then they would go out of business. And so they just did what the banks wanted them to do. And so it's like the level of corruption just goes up and up and up, and no one ever had to pay the price for it. They got bailed out in the end. Because what are you going to do? You're not going to bail out your banks. Like so it's crazy. But so that movie is based in a historical, reality. And the level of corruption, sometimes you like, I find myself talking about this stuff, thinking about it, and then just kind of taking a step back and being like, man, so all this shit is happening that is out of our control, that's so catastrophically corrupt. But then like, does any of it matter at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Right. And then you think, okay, well, why am I getting frustrated over like that slow driver, or Taco Bell was out of Baja Blast or whatever? Like, then I start to think about my petty problems and think, man, there's so much other bigger shit that matters, but neither of them fucking matter. And also nobody gives a fuck about anyone else in the long run. I mean, family is so important because it's blood related and you grow up with them and this and that. Coming from someone who doesn't have a ton of family, I don't have the bonds that most of you do with siblings and stuff like that. But this planet, we're only here for a small time. So do whatever that makes you happy. That's my takeaway. You know what I mean? Be aware of the big picture, but don't get too caught up in this shit. You know what I'm saying? Choppin Wood, bringing the heat tonight.
And we're in no way, shape, or form a political podcast.
We are now.
We are now.
I'm fucking. We're just chopping wood.
Man.
You probably haven't even. We got maybe 3 or 4 viewers that made it this deep into the pod. Appreciate you, Clarence, Jonisha, Trey.
Just throwing names out now.
I don't even know. All you guys just ghosts out here. See, none of y'all matter, but we don't either. That's the thing. We're just gonna keep chopping. We don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
We don't. And you can tell us what you want us to talk about, but
we don't care. We don't
care.
Like one of these pods, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna play Xbox while we pod. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? So shit. Welcome back, Choppin Wood. Are we ending on that? That's hot. We
definitely are.
We might
like, comment, subscribe, and all that other good shit. We might get canceled, but we gonna keep talking shit.
Yeah, and if we're not back for another Choppin Wood episode within a week, y'all know something happened to us. The government is always listening and always watching. I truly believe that. So shout out to the FBI agent watching me through my webcam. And yeah, we're chopping wood.
All right, y'all.
Streets.